Hey guys, this is Andrew Nam or Clay Aiken, and I'm here with Steven Lemoine, who I got to meet through another friend, and we really hit it off because he wants to make a podcast as well pertaining to video games, and I feel like that's really awesome that he has the same passion as me. We're here today though to talk about the topic of a hero's calling, and I feel like this is a really fun episode, and I hope you guys enjoy it and learn something new to it. Let's get started. All right, guys, I got Steve here. Steve, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Andrew. How about yourself?
I'm doing amazing today. Man,
Great.
I'm excited about this topic that we're here to discuss. It's called A Hero's Calling, and it just came to me when I was watching the TV show The Flash, but we'll get more into that later on. But I first want to talk to you about where you started with your life. I know we just talked a little bit before in the previous month, but I feel like I don't know too much about you. So the first thing I'm really curious about is maybe where you grew up and how your life started out.
Yeah, for sure. I actually grew up about 2.5 to 3 hours east of here, over in East Texas. A small town called Jefferson. Not many people know about it. Usually, like the older people that around this area. Every once in a while you get one of those people.
I see.
But basically, instead of buildings, it's all trees. So way out in the country, you have to drive an hour to go anywhere to do anything. So I had lots of time to try to keep myself occupied,
Right.
because my grandmother wouldn't let me outside by myself, so I had to stay inside quite a bit. So naturally, I was drawn to video games and art and anime, which I didn't know was anime at the time. I was about 6 or younger. I just thought they were cartoons, but it was all fascinating, and it just sucked me in and brought me to where I am today.
That's very interesting. I think if you're in the countryside though, well, one of my friends, he actually lived in a very small town as well. I forget which city, but he told me that he never really had access to like a computer or the internet until maybe like 2 years ago when he came over here to our area. So
I want to say it was 1995.
1995.
And 1995, I think, was my first so-called interaction with the internet, I guess. My uncle and my aunt, they were doing pretty well for themselves, and I actually went with him to Sears to buy a computer. And,
Nice.
of course, it was his, not mine. So we brought it home, and, that coupled with the anime and the video games, they kind of all go together. But I was never really on it all the time. Every once in a while I would go up there. I'd be able to get on the internet for a few minutes. But really, the only place for internet is basically like any restaurants in the closest town that have it, or at school. And that's where I did most of everything, is at school.
Okay.
I watched a lot of anime at school. Don't tell anyone. I should have been doing classes or eating lunch, but that's what I was doing.
Yeah. I was not really procrastinating, but I was hanging out with friends a lot too, not really taking school seriously. So I get what you mean by that. I'm very curious though, what your favorite video game is. And this could be like a video game that maybe taught you a lot of lessons. It could be like your first video game, just whatever is calling to you right now. What video game stands out to you right now?
I'm always going to have to go with The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening for the Game Boy.
Okay. Awakening.
Yeah, it's really awesome. It was the very first handheld Zelda. It brought in a lot of elements from the hit Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo, and the art style is very similar. Some of the gameplay, but it's got some new items in there. But I think the thing that really makes that one my favorite is it kind of, in my mind, brings my family closer together because my dad's side lives in Louisiana and my mother's side lives over here in Texas. And my grandmother in Louisiana actually got me hooked on video games more so than I was, just because I thought it was cool that, she at the time was probably like 50 or 60 and she's in there playing some Super Nintendo, and
wow,
she had stacks of Nintendo Power next to her recliner. I would read those all summer when I would go down there. And but just because her favorite video game was Zelda, and my grandmother from Texas actually got me a Game Boy, which was bundled with Link's Awakening for my birthday one year, and I was like, oh man, this is so cool. I know she didn't know about it, but I just, it kind of just feels like it's a magnet, I guess, with my family, in my opinion. That and the nostalgia.
For sure, man, for sure. That's interesting you mentioned that, because I was talking to my older brother recently about, my father, and our father actually, I didn't know this until my brother recently told me, but our father really enjoyed playing video games, but my mom didn't. So he ended up stop playing video games because of that. But he told me there was a moment in the past where it was just him and my older brother playing the Super Nintendo, like playing that Mario World game. I forgot what it's called. I think it's called Super Mario, where you just go like to different levels and it's like 2D and stuff like that. And he just enjoyed playing with my brother enjoyed playing with my dad, and he wished he did that more, but he ended up just not doing it because my mother didn't want us to. So it's very interesting how we started enjoying those video games because of that.
Definitely. So, it's always neat to find that connection, and you wouldn't think of it,
Yeah, for sure. And then I started playing because of my brother. So that's just how the cycle started.
Yeah, so. I can honestly say I got my brother started. So
there you go. That's how you do it. But what games are you currently playing right now?
Currently, I'm playing Destiny. I jumped back into that here recently when it was on sale with the Taken King. So I'm playing some Destiny.
Which console?
Xbox One.
Xbox One. Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead.
And I'm playing Zelda Twilight Princess, the HD remaster for the Wii U.
Okay.
And of course, League of Legends. Anytime I can sit at my computer, which is almost all the time.
League of Legends.
It's great, dude.
Good.
And one more, I'm kind of jumping in on Final Fantasy VI. I've got that on my phone, so I've always wanted to play it. And I figured it's on my phone. I can just, I don't have to take any extra consoles or anything like that. My phone is always on me. Hey, it's pretty cool so far. I'm enjoying it.
That's nice. That's awesome. I wish I took the time to just play all these different games, but right now I'm just currently focusing on one game, World of Warcraft. But nice. I think it's pretty awesome though, just to see the different storylines from like how each game starts up and like what kind of world they introduce,
Yep.
So I think I'll play Final Fantasy. I never played any of the games before. I think I'll play Final Fantasy when they do that remake with Final Fantasy VII.
Oh yeah, man, I'm looking forward to that. Dude.
Yeah. Do you know when it's coming out? I'm not too sure.
I want to say they said the first part would be middle of 2017. I think I could be wrong. See the middle or the end. I can't remember.
Okay. No, it's all good. All right. From that perspective, though, I also want to know what's the last convention you've been to as well.
It's going to have to be A-Kon 2014, unfortunately.
Ooh, that's 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, man. Time just flew past, dude. I didn't realize until I was looking at this and I was like, oh, man, 2014, jeez.
Well, how'd you like that?
It was pretty cool. I mean, I've been there a couple of times before. I've been to quite a few conventions around here. The Dallas Comic-Con when it was in Irving. A-Fest a few times, A-Kon a few times, and it was pretty awesome. That year, I actually cross-played as Vi from League of Legends.
Nice.
It was pretty sweet.
So for A-Kon, that people that don't know, could you tell us a little bit about what it is? Because I've heard about it, but I've never been there myself. So
yeah, sure. If you've ever been to like a fest or a smaller convention or just like a gathering, it's basically just this huge get together of people with similar likes. You got anime, obviously at Acon. It's just anime. You got some video games there. You have game rooms set up where they regularly host tournaments throughout the day for the whole time it's open. You got like Smash Brothers, Rock Band. You got MVC3. You just have all kinds of games. And you have tabletop games in another room across the hallway. You have panels going on about like voice acting, for illustrating.
Where was this at?
Acon is in Dallas.
Okay.
It's right there close to the farmers market, I think, unless it has moved.
Okay, I think I get where it's at.
Yeah, it's just like right by a DART rail station.
Okay. What makes Acon so much bigger than like smaller conventions like A-Fest? Because I feel like A-Fest is another version of Acon.
It is. It's like you said, it's a smaller version. I think it really just boils down to the time it's been going, actually.
Okay.
I think Acon's been going on for like 24, 26 years or something like that, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, it's been going on for 27. Next year's going to be 28.
That's crazy. It's just, I don't know. To me, it's crazy thinking about that. But then when I think about my own age, I'm like, okay, it started when I was born. Okay, that's not too long ago.
Yeah, it's your parents that started all this.
Right? Yeah, for sure. Oh man.
And it's great to see how it's just passed down through generation too. Yeah. I mean, it's just something else that everyone can enjoy and talk about and be one together with.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I remember, did you go to the National Video Game Museum down at Frisco in Texas?
I did. I was there the opening weekend.
Really? I was there as well. So
yeah, I think y'all went before us because we arrived later.
Oh, okay. I see. Yeah,
it was pretty cool though. It was awesome. Yeah, I want to go back there.
I do too. The reason why I mentioned that though is because at this, it's just called National Video Game Museum.
Uh-huh.
When I went there with my friends, I was seeing like all the parents, like all the adults around 30 or 40, just showing their kids, hey, this was the console I played, and this was really cool when it first came out, and I was a little kid, and this is why. So I felt like that was very interesting that we got to see like the latest consoles combined with like the oldest console that was first created, and people still enjoy that old console because, like you said before, that nostalgia feeling, and they're trying to show their kids that as well.
Exactly.
So, all right, but I think I got to know a little bit more about you, and that was really cool. But I want to know about your hero's calling, and the way I feel like this could be a good transition is how did you move your passion or your desire to play video games when you first grew up? How did you translate that to your real life, like I would say, career path right now?
Sure. Well, I'll talk about the career path I intend to go down because that's not my current one.
No, you're good. You're good.
Of course, you're playing a video game, and what are you playing it on? It's essentially a computer.
Yeah.
So naturally, you put two and two together. Hey, I got access to the internet. Let me research some things now. You find out about it. Hey, this is really cool. How could I possibly work to doing something in that field? And at the time, the closest I could get was going down an artistic path through like graphic design and advertising. So I've always enjoyed drawing, so this was like awesome. This is something I think I'm relatively good at. I could probably do this, no problem. This is perfect.
Right.
So I go through art all 4 years of high school. start going to college for advertising, graphic design, start learning Photoshop, Illustrator, things like that. And then around this time, it's 2006. I'm in college, my first year, and things are just coming out. The iPhone and the Droid have been announced. They're about to release. Things are going in a whole new direction. A whole new ecosystem of gaming has a chance to open, to flourish in the mobile market with phones. Sure, they've already been there, but now, with like touchscreen, you have internet on your phone. There are so many other things you could do with it.
Right.
So
right.
I intended to, maybe go into like an ad agency or something, or do graphic design, and then maybe working and to learning programming languages and things like that, where I can actually start to do gaming and things like that. So that was my intention, and I kind of veered off the path every once in a while to where I'm currently at. But it's always kind of been between doing video games or doing like comics or something like that. So with those two being somewhat similar now, being both digital, it kind of just was up to chance. So that's kind of where I was being called to, and how I got there.
What do you think would be your ideal lifestyle? Like, I know this is like a cliche question to ask, but
yeah.
If you didn't have to worry about money, what would you be doing right now?
Oh man, it would have to be a mixture of doing a graphic novel and playing video games or something like that.
Graphic novel. Okay, that sounds awesome, and I hope you can do that in the future.
Me too, dude. Me too.
But just moving on from that, or building on top of that,
yeah.
What do you think is something you could provide? I feel like this is the big question everyone needs to start like asking themselves to begin their journey is, what do you think you were meant to do on this earth? Like, what do you think is something unique to the world that no one else can provide, but you can provide?
I would have to say, I would guess my perspective and understanding of certain things, or
Absolutely.
anything like that. Everyone has their own perspective on something. That's a given, sure. But I feel like I'm a little bit more level-headed. I try to think of all the kinds of ways something could go, or something, or how something could happen, or if it goes this way, it's kind of like Shikamaru in Naruto.
Who's Shikamaru?
He is he's one of Naruto's friends. He has the shadow jutsu, where he can like hold somebody or use the shadows to like attack.
I think I know who you're talking about, but I would need a picture.
Yeah, he always says things are always troublesome, so he never does anything.
Okay.
So
I remember there's some shadow guy. I forgot what he looked like, but
yeah. So okay. I feel like I tend to think like him. I'm always thinking, so many steps ahead, so many steps this way, so many steps that way. I would have I feel a little more level-headed on how I can make a better decision, or try to help someone make the best decision.
Okay. Yeah. That makes absolute sense. Do you feel like, though, everyone was destined for something? Like, do you think... I think this is very, very... not controversial, but it's very important to understand whether or not we have control of what we're doing with our lives. And I've been listening to a lot of people that have been successful, and they say a lot of their success has to do with luck. They say, man, I go on my journey and I felt like this was the right thing to do, but then all of a sudden I just got very lucky. Something very fortunate happened to me, and then all of a sudden I'm a millionaire or something of that sort. Do you think that has to do with just luck? Do some people get more lucky than others? Do you think people can build their own luck? Do you think it's like if you just follow your own journey, like the greatest thing that you're meant to do is going to happen to you?
Sure.
What's your perspective?
I feel like if you make your own luck, you're basically gambling, right? So you're not really making luck. You're playing the odds. You're obviously pretty smart. You know what you're betting on or what you're trying to do. So you know how things work. You'll choose the right targets, so you'll be able to get it easier. You start building up and building up. But I do think that some people do tend to be more lucky than others. And sometimes I feel like maybe those aren't the ones that really have like a chosen destiny or a chosen calling. They're there, they're going to be like, I don't know, I guess kind of like they're productive, they help move society along.
Right.
They're just kind of, I don't want to call them NPCs or anything, because it's not saying they're not important or anything computers. Like that. Yeah. But, I do feel like some people have a destiny or they know what they think their destiny is.
I kind of get it now.
It's just...
So
that's really all I have on that one.
I think this is probably what I'm getting at from this, is that maybe there's two worlds you can choose to live in. The first world is like the video game world, the realistic world, where you have a character and you say, these are my limits. Let's see if what I can do with, the card that was dealt to me. Right.
Right.
And then from there, I feel like if you're playing that game, then luck is a big factor in that, because you're playing in that reality where coincidence could be played in your favor. And I feel like that's where the terminology luck comes in. It's like you can make these calculated guesses, but there's always a chance of you getting it wrong just because it's a chance. But I feel like there's a second world where I feel like this is like you were destined to do something, and this is where a lot of like the religious views come in, where a lot of it's like the spiritual side comes in, where I feel like there's something greater up there. We're like telling you that you were meant to do something, and if you go along that path, then you'll reach your fullest potential. You'll be absolutely fulfilled. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if you go that second route, then luck is never a factor, because it's not even about being lucky in life. This is about doing what fulfills you, and then you'll just impact society naturally because of that.
I agree.
Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, man.
So I think that's where I'm getting at. I mean, I could always be wrong. I always like have room to grow. So, but the reason why I brought up this topic, and I'm glad I'm talking to you about it, is that as I mentioned before, I recently rewatched The Flash, the TV show The Flash. It's the newest one. I don't know when it came out, but I'm pretty sure it's in 2000. What year is it? 2016.
16.
There's like three seasons, so maybe 2012. I would say around that time.
Okay.
So it's the newest one. Have you seen The Flash?
I haven't. I don't actually watch The Flash.
It's all good. But for the synopsis of The Flash, for people that don't know what it's about, there's a forensic scientist named Barry Allen who works for the police, and he gets struck by lightning in his office, and he starts getting these superpowers, and he's known as the Flash from there on because of that. And people speculate maybe he got lucky, right? Because he was just a normal guy. He had a normal job working for the police, right?
Yes.
And all of a sudden, he just got struck by lightning because of this big, giant supernova explosion that happened by accident, right? And all of a sudden, this lightning happened to hit this guy, and then he happened to get this superpower and be known as the Flash. And before, like, they introduced that scene, they were showing like all his troubles in his life, and it always had to do with speed. Like it had to do like Barry not being faster or not thinking quick on his feet. Sure. And all of a sudden, he just gets these superpowers, and he gets to do extraordinary things because of it. And I feel like he has that superpower. He gets to do extra things for his city, for his society, and I feel like that's what makes superhumans, or how do I say it?
Metahumans.
Yeah, metahumans. That's what makes metahumans so extraordinary. Is that they provide something that no one else can't, right? So the Flash is super fast. He can run fast on his feet. He could do other things as well, but that's his main thing. So in doing that, he could stop bad guys with that superpower. And I feel like everyone is a metahuman, so we have like a unique set of abilities that we can provide to the world. We just need to figure out what that is. Like, we just need to push our strength, right? Like, we don't...
Yeah, push ourselves to unlock it.
Exactly. Like, I don't look at the Flash and say, oh, he needs to breathe underwater, or he needs to, like, fly or something like that. It's like, no. It's like, the Flash is known for speed. That's his strength. He's pushing his strength, and that's all he's going to work with, right? Every single villain that he fights, he's going to use his strength somehow to outplay his opponent. And I feel like that's what everyone needs to do. It's like they need to figure out what their title is, like what their alter ego is, and they'll be so much better off and more fulfilled if they just figure that out. So
definitely.
Another thing as well that triggered this thought was, have you ever heard of nerd fitness before?
I think I have actually. On another podcast, they were talking about this.
Do you know which podcast?
I want to say it was one of the IGN's podcasts, but I could be wrong.
No, it's okay.
But I believe so.
So, nerd fitness, for people that don't know, is I think of it as a community for people that enjoy video games or comics or just anything related to those things, but they also want to be fit and healthy with their lifestyle. You know, it doesn't have to do with only have to do with exercise. It has to do with like your psychological issues, going through like maybe addiction, or going through like raising children and stuff like that. Like it's a community set up where it's like, I have these issues and I want to connect with other people, and you feel safe because we have like the same kind of culture. Yeah, we have the same cultural background, which is like video games or comic books or just watching movies and stuff like that. And I really like that community because of it. That's
cool. That's cool. I didn't know it was all the extra stuff.
Yeah. So I really like it. Yeah. I think when I first went in, it only costs like $100, and it's a one-time fee. So you paid $100, and then you're set. And then you get to read all of Steve Cobb is like the founder. You get to read all his blogs. You get to read what other people are posting. You join the Facebook group, and it's just like, I feel like it's really cool because of that. But the reason why I mentioned that is because he likes to do quests. Like, the way he has people work on their goals is he makes them quests. Cool. And one thing he talks about is everyone going on a epic quest. Like, I feel like that's how there's a lot of people like that like just make a list and say, this is my bucket list, or this is my epic quest, right? And if I go out and do these things, that's what will make me fulfilled with my life. And I feel like that's pretty awesome. Like that's what kept me with this community, and that's what makes me like, it helps me focus on what should be more fulfilling in my life. Is just filling out that epic quest and just going out and doing it.
That's awesome, man.
So yeah,
it's cool. It's really cool.
Do you think there's any other like communities or something that triggered like this idea as well about a hero's calling? I remember you were talking to me about like that poppies.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the.
So tell me about that.
That's actually the title of the comic they made for Poppy when they reworked her.
And this is Poppy in League of Legends.
Poppy in League of Legends, correct,
Okay.
correct. It's a female Yorda with a large hammer, and she does work.
There you go.
But yeah, no. At first, I thought that's what you were wanting to talk about. I was like, man, that's I had to make sure that's what I was thinking about. So I googled it, and then obviously I messaged you again just to make sure. But
right,
I was like, oh. And it's actually it is actually pretty funny. But that whole comic is actually about her looking for the owner of the hammer that she has. And it's a special hammer for the chosen hero to protect Demacia with. And it's implied that throughout her journey to find the chosen hero that she's clearly ran into some fights or some trouble. Right. And she's had to actually use the hammer herself, or she's given it to someone whom she thought was the chosen hero, but they apparently turned out not to be a hero, and she had to clean up after them. And that's actually one of the things that goes on in the comic, how she thought she found the chosen hero. She sees him, protecting old people and young ones, and getting people out of the buildings that are falling and trying to fight, and he's going up against the monster that's attacking the village, and his weapon breaks, so he's like, give me another one, and she throws him the hammer, and he goes in for the attack, and he basically gets obliterated. And you see Poppy there, and she's upset, she's kind of crying, and she's failed again in her eyes. But little does she know that her actual calling is to be the hero, that the hammer is actually hers, and she doesn't realize that yet. Right.
Dang, that's amazing. Yeah, sometimes the most obvious answer you're looking for, it's just right there in front of your face.
Right.
So, have you ever read The Alchemist before?
I haven't, but I have been meaning to read that for, believe it or not, 10 years.
Just read it, man. You gotta read it. I mean, The Alchemist is a book by, I forget the guy's name, but I wish I knew his name on top of my head, but I don't. But it's one of those books where I sat down and I read it at the airport, and I finished it that day, at the airport. Just because I loved it so much. It was a journey that I felt like I couldn't let go of. Mm-hmm. And after I finished reading it, I was like, man, that really opened my eyes. Nice. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like those kind of themes are presented in this story as well, in The Alchemist, where he tries going on a journey, and the answer is just right in front of his face. But it's just that even though it was right in front of his face, he wasn't ready for that answer yet. And I feel like that's pretty important.
Right. That's true. And sometimes I feel like I can actually see that, I see someone, they're so close to obtaining their goal. Right. But, they're not ready for it, and they keep failing. And you want to tell them, hey, maybe you should do this or do this, or, it's just not your time yet. Just wait, come back to it later. Right. But I definitely know what you're talking about. Sometimes it's for the best, sometimes we have to learn those lessons before we can actually get there. Yeah,
absolutely true. I find that absolutely true with my life, man. But there's one last thing I want to talk about. I mean, we talked a lot today. Yeah. I feel like this was really good. I really like this. It's really great. Awesome.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. So, but the last thing I want to talk about pertains to education and parenting. So I feel like for video games, right? Every time you play a video game, for my understanding, is you get into the game, right? You click play, and then a story is presented to you, right? They talk about a certain story or a dialogue or whatnot, and then you get into your avatar or character, and then you figure out what you need to do, right? And then they present quest, or maybe you go explore or whatever, but you have some kind of idea of what you get to do in the game, if that makes sense.
That makes sense.
You have a general direction. But in life, I feel like no one really tells you your story. right? You don't get to
Right.
read some kind of book and say, "Oh, this is what my story is," before I realize what my life is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before you wake up and say like, "What's going on?" Right?
Sure.
No one really tells you that. And I feel like a lot of people are really confused on how to start their life and like where to go from there, if that makes sense.
Right.
And I feel like parents and like the education system, they really just tell you things so you have a general direction. But I feel like that's not the only way life works, you know?
Sure. Sure.
So,
No, I definitely agree. You know, we're basically told what to do or how to think
yeah.
or where to go or anything like that from basically the moment we exit the womb. You know,
Yes.
you know, you're crying, you're told to be quiet, you know, you're told to hush, you know, you're told when to go to sleep, you're told when to eat. Then sure, when you get older, you know, you start, you know, being able to make some choices, but there's still some things you just can't quite do. And but you're not sure why. And hopefully you learn why, and then, you know, obviously you'll get older. And like say we're in high school, and then, you know, we're told, hey, you have to go to college or you have to go to work. This is your choice. You get to make it. Let's see what you could probably do. You know, if your grades aren't the best, or no scholarships or anything like that, you may not be able to go to a college. So you know, I have to go to work right now. You know, obviously this wasn't exactly me being told what to do. It's just I know in my mind this is what I have to do, or else, you know, I won't be. You know, I'll be homeless. You know, things go even worse. So you go to work, and then, you know, you start to have more freedom. You know, you start to move up in a job. You know, hey, I'm doing pretty good. I think it's time I could go to school. You know, and then you know, you go to school, you're going to work, and then next thing you know, you quit the other job and you're able to do something that you really want to do. And I think sometimes people can't quite make that for one reason or another, and I think that they should at least try, because you'll never know if you don't. Absolutely. And, you know, if you don't make it, you know, worst thing that's happened, you know, you didn't make it, but you learned something. You know, maybe you could try something another way, or try something completely different.
Yeah, that's why I like doing like this podcast. That's why I like just going out there and experimenting, because no one's telling me, hey, right, you should try this, you should do this. It's more like, I want to give something to the world. Let me try this, right? Let me do something and then see how it works. And then from there, you get to pick up some pieces and then move on with your life, you know? And I really like that. I really enjoy that. So I think that's it for this podcast, though.
All right.
I really liked it. It was really awesome.
I really enjoyed it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem, Steven. Let's do one last thing, though. I want to give everyone, usually for each podcast, I want to give people like a call to action. So what do you feel like is like a good call to action for our audience members? Like, what do you think we could leave them off thinking about?
Let's see. For our audience, I think that they should really try their best to not get so salty over everything. I know that seems kind of cliche, but I know I know a lot of things have been going on in the League community here recently with some pretty salty behavior, and especially with some of the pro players, and it's unfortunate, because, you know, that just makes us look bad. And, you know, we're just now trying to break into the general public's eye instead of just our public eye. You know, you have us on ESPN being broadcast for League, and, you know, we have to set an example. So I just want to say, you know, think before you do something. You know, is it really worth doing something? Try not to do the opposite.
Yeah, for sure. All right.
Be positive.
We'll leave it on that. Thank you, Steven, again. I hope everyone that's listening had an awesome time listening to this and learned something new. And I'll see you guys next time.